Hello and welcome to another event preview with myself, KingT. You should really know who I am by now, and my guest Yumi. If you ever watched one of these, you should know who he is by now. I'm going to keep introducing us every video just in case. But yeah, we're back with another preview. We just did the Blast RMR preview, which went okay, I guess, for me. Pretty well for Yumi. I mean, you're not complaining, right? Your lead's extended. You've gotten enough W's so far this season to be quite contented, and the viewers yourselves, you guys have also been smashing it secretly in the background. I haven't been really keeping you up to date on how that's been going, but so far you suck at picking dark horses, nailing it on the favourites. So all in all, pretty successful. You sit on 10 points, just behind Yumi's 11, whilst I have a lowly 7, but there's still plenty to play for. It's a long year, and we'll probably carry this over into CS2 when we finally transition in August or September or whenever.
Yeah.
That date has been arbitrarily set. Yeah. Blast, Paris, Major, it's going to be awesome. I hope, because I'm going there, so it better be, otherwise I'm wasting a lot of money on trains and hostel rooms. But yeah, Yumi, been a little while since we had a chat. How you doing?
Yeah, doing all right. I mean, picks-wise, I'm feeling pretty content with how it all kind of panned out. I think, you know, most of our selections were pretty solid, and you know, aside from, you know, I went to the Asia RMR, and listen, had a good enough experience. Like, love the country, had fun with my colleagues, but at the same time was also ill for like the first 4 days, and it was not so great. But you know, at least we got victors out of that region at the very least. You know, we didn't have a complete crumbling of the entire system.
Yeah, but it's been a fair amount of time on tech delays, didn't you, as well? I remember trying to tune into those games and just being completely disappointed by nothing happening.
Yeah, servers just didn't work. We got like the first best of one in on day one, and then they got 3 or 4 rounds in on the second best of one, and then we just had to scrap the entire day. So yeah, that wasn't fun playing catch up, but aside from that, it was a cool experience. Like, Mongolia is cold, but a pretty nice nice place. People are lovely.
How's the food? That's something I've never really known. What is Mongolian food?
I mean, the hotel just had like pretty much intercontinental random sort of dishes. I wanted to explore and have more Mongolian like local food, but I had food poisoning from, I think, the airline before I even arrived. So I basically was on like rice and soup for the entire duration of my stay.
Oh, that sounds delightful. Honestly.
Yeah, no,
really
it was
lovely,
great.
lovely way to spend your time. Didn't even get to try out that famous Mongolian barbecue I've heard so much about. But look, let's get straight into this. We've got another set of predictions to make, another set of picks. We're going to let you go first. Who have you taken as your first favourite?
Wait, sorry. I've noted it down because I knew I would forget which order I went with things. And my first favourite is G2. I've decided to... Wait, I'm making sure I've got that right. Yeah, it's not even... No, wait, where am I?
What?
I'm actually completely lost as to where I've put all of my things. Yes. G2. I'm pretty sure I've got that one right. Yes.
You have. I'm
G2.
just wondering why you're so confused.
I looked at it and I was like, because I scrolled up to see what our old results were, because I don't have our chart or, you know, the spreadsheet. So I looked at what our old results were, and I just thought I'd messed it up. So my fault. G2. I've gone with them because, listen, first off, I've always liked this squad. I mean, the core of it at the very least. The only critical point I ever had was Hooksy, and I think this the way that they were able to sort of sail through RMRB in relatively unscathed fashion, like only dropping I think the first map to 9, which is fine in my eyes. Like, 9 were a squad that are certainly going to be of relatively high value. I like that team as well. So in my mind, if you're going to lose to any sort of underdog, newly bred team, that would be the one for me. You know, they're kind of like the Polish heroic kind of story in my eyes for the tier 2 region. So I think that G2 have a fine excuse to have not made it straight through into Legends, but I think they should just sort of comfortably breeze through the Challenger stage here.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I struggle to really find a fault in that kind of pick. The only reason you'd ever really pick against them is to go, oh, but what about this time? What about what happened here? Like, it's not quite the same roster as it has been at past majors where they've been massively disappointing. They should be able to just cruise right on and get back on track. They should be a team that we see competing for the top places at majors.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been nice if we had some sort of system that decided, hey, you are the best team of this time period. You shouldn't have to go through 16 different phases of qualification just to make the major top 16, because that's where the major should start, right? That's where the best teams really should be. But yeah, 3-0 maybe is a bit of a dream. You know, best of ones happen, like things can go wrong. But if they don't go through, yeah, it'll be another very disappointing major cycle for them. So expect it to be favourites, expect it to go on, and probably makes a very deep run at this event. If not, we probably see more changes before the end of the week. things start going wrong, they'll start making changes again. That's just how G2 have rolled recently, I think, and it kind of makes sense considering their expectations and their star power.
I will say, as like an aside, just completely irrelevant to them, like as a squad, they did also release like a new sponsor today, I think, with Monte and CS:GO Roll. You know, he just turned 18, and we're immediately moving into gambling sponsors, which I think is it's a great look.
Hey, he's old enough to play. He's old enough to advertise it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I've never had a
100%.
problem
But
with it.
they couldn't wait one day. Like he turned 18 yesterday, and this thing came out today. So
Hey, he's the face, right? He's one of the people you actually want to be pushing out there right now. He makes sense to promote. Like he's their link into the lucrative Russian market of addicted children. So you've really got to push him. So
and maybe Nico said no.
There's a good there's a chance, but I prefer the connection to the Russian side of the fan base that they definitely want to appeal to right now. It's politically a good idea to appeal to that side of the fan base, I think. Myself, my first pick, I've gone for probably the other biggest favourite team who should be also comfortably making a massive run at this event. It's FaZe. If they don't go deep here, I'll be very frustrated, politely annoyed. I'll be typing things in all lowercase, I promise you, to all my friends and fellow gamblers. Yeah, FaZe Clan are still a team of championship potential, but they were just like a tick from when they actually won their last major. Like when they won the major, they were just a tick better. And that made a big difference because they were the close game experts. You know, it was always 16-13, 16-14s, especially on your map pick. On their own map pick, they might put it away a little more comfortably. But it was how well they played those close games that really made them the best. I'm expecting more of that here. I'm expecting Rops to keep on showing that pretty good level he's been playing out all year round. Brokey hasn't been on the same form as he was. I mean, to be fair, that was a part of why they were winning those close games. Brokey winning clutches, things like that. But you can always count on Rain to step up in the big games. Combine that with the firepower they already have and Twist's ability to dominate every group stage. I think we're all right here. We shouldn't see another collapse from FaZe. And we're hopefully going to see them go deep in this event too.
Is there any explanation that you have for how they performed in the RMR? Because
I genuinely think they didn't feel the urgency. Like there was no urgency in their prep. There was no urgency in them. They're like, oh yeah, it's the RMR. We should be cruising through this. In their minds, they were already thinking about other events, bigger trophies, bigger slams. Like they just weren't as engaged, I don't think. I think it's purely the mental game. At this point, they're the team who beat themselves. Like with everyone else in complete disarray at the top, they're the only team that can beat them. And we've seen when there's not as big a stakes on the line, they can beat themselves. And the RMR thing was a classic example of that. They didn't feel urgency until they got to that last chance stage.
Yeah, I think it was something that we even highlighted the last prediction round, is that like there was always this caveat where after, I remember saying after Antwerp, I was worried that they would lack the drive to actually compete at sort of follow-up majors. And, then they also achieved the Grand Slam for Pro League prior to, make it to the RMRs. And so, you're knocking things off the checklist, but there's still other things to accomplish. So I could definitely see that as a possible angle as to why they even ended up in panic stations. Because listen, you had both FaZe and C9 in your previous predictions, and they end up having to duke it out in the last chance qualifiers, which is just like heartbreaking because even if you didn't pick Cloud9, I was probably going to swipe them up. So yeah, it's a pretty disappointing result. And honestly, Cloud9 probably just pissed that FaZe were even in that situation, because one like top tier team could afford to mess up, and having two in that last chance qualifier just kind of screws the pooch.
Massively, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Cloud9 is. You just brought back Cloud9 to my mind. I just keep thinking about, oh yeah, 2 probably top 10 talents, you know, solid third piece. And yet they still can't be consistently even close to where they should be. It's so frustrating to just think about that roster.
I mean, dude, that was Nico and Hunter basically when they failed to make Rio, right? So it's
yeah, it's a similar scenario, but with Cloud9, obviously it's far more consistent because they never change IGL, never change anything up, so it's constantly dealing with this up and down, topsy turvy. But anyway, let's purge our minds of Cloud9. No one can pick them here. They can't screw us over. They're off playing, you know, their online cups now, you know, where they feel at home. Yumi, second pick. You going for another favorite, or are you gonna whip out an underdog?
I may as well. Yeah, well, I'll just go with a favorite because
All
they're a favorite that I think are only really technically a favorite based on the way that we've determined it. You know, like I always have doubted this team, I think, when it's come down to it, and I've selected MOUZ as one of my favorites. So, I wasn't sure to a certain extent how consistent this squad would be. Like I think underrated them for a decent amount of time, and I think many have, but they've proven that they can make they can get to playoffs pretty consistently. I think the pieces on the squad, especially I mean, especially Xerxin and Frozen, like those guys have always been I would say Frozen is certainly more of a soft spot, but I've warmed up to Xerxin because I was kind of thinking that many of the academy players would just end up being super overrated based on the amount of the sort of level of competition that they play at. Sure, eye test always looks good, but they're also not put through the same level of strain as they would be in like a top level game, even though they're playing against effectively like equal opposition. And so as he's gone through more and more events, I like this. I like the guy. I think Frozen as well has just been super consistent on this squad. And listen, for the past 8 months, Dexter has actually called like a pretty solid. That has honestly called like a pretty solid CT and T side for this team. And sure, it helps having like stars that'll do things for you, but the opening segments with MOUZ weren't pretty with Dexter. But he's really, I think, found a style that works now for him. So yeah, now MOUZ are solid, and I just think if I had to choose between many of these other favorites, aside from the one that you selected as well, I struggled to feel as confident that they'll go through.
Okay. I would never have picked MOUZ, honestly, in a million years. I would have even gone west of the Atlantic before I went to MOUZ, because they looked horrible in Rio. Looked really bad in Rio. I mean, sure, 9 were the team in form, the team to beat. They still lost the BO1 first to Big. And if anyone should be able to go into a server with a bunch of kids and, you know, trade with them, which is 9 aren't quite kids. They've got some older tier 2 players on that side, but it's still not what we consider an experienced tier 1 side. To go and lose like that was disappointing to me. They did make playoffs technically at Pro League, 5th to 8th. But you look at the wins they had. They beat Fury and Pain, which is great, but I'm still not that sold on the wins they had. The losses looked far worse than the actual wins ever like reassured me. Like it was like the reassurance wasn't there. So I'm doubtful that they're actually gonna do a whole lot here. I think what we're gonna see within the next 6 months, unless this turns out I'm completely wrong, they go 3-0, they actually make something happen at this major. I do think we see a shuffle because of the amount of players we see being released from teams, the amount of like available talent in the scene. This is the time to make some more risky moves. So I think they probably take another risk on someone if things don't really work out. Unfortunately, it's probably someone like JDC who makes the cut, who makes the move
cut,
away,
yeah.
Gets the cut, or Frozen gets poached for someone else who wants to make an upgrade. Then they have to fill that gap. But I feel like there's some moves coming if this team doesn't magically step up relative to what I expect of them.
Yeah, I don't think that's totally unreasonable. Like I actually expected. First off, I made the prediction that Cloud9 didn't make finals of Rio. They probably just make some roster moves, or maybe even break up the core, because they don't have the major to look forward to. Cloud9 are going to kind of wallow away to a certain extent, and you know, Counter-Strike 2. As soon as we're starting to think about that, yeah, there are going to be players on the chopping block, and yeah, I could certainly see that for MOUZ, but I also don't think like as much as Rio is a solid event for teams that are looking to like build confidence and the sort, it also can serve as a distraction. And I just don't think teams really came in like hyper fixated on how they're going to anti-strat for this team or that team when there's effectively harder games in that they're like larger variants coming up for the challenger and the legend stage with best of ones. But then also, you just you the consequences of your actions are going to effectively affect your legacy in the remaining time we have in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Like an IM Rio, I don't think many people would care that much compared to making main stage of the major. Like the disparity in importance is just too large. So I I wouldn't pretend I put too much stock. Like Vitality, cool, they won, and Heroic, came second. Like good job, guys. But I didn't really care that either of them won or lost this event. So
Okay.
that's my own skewed way of thinking of things. It was also in a pretty messed up time zone for me to watch any of the games, so I did struggle to keep up at times. So maybe that's why I have this bias. But yeah, no, I see there are pitfalls, and maybe I like putting my faith in teams that just don't end up succeeding. Like I picked Cloud9 like the whole last season, and they just didn't do anything. So I'm ready to be disappointed again.
Just a bit of a masochist, really.
I don't even realize I'm doing it until it's too late.
Oh, it's so often the case with addictions. Right. My second favourite is something it's a team I always like to pick, because I always say it, I love their IGL. I think they have a great recruiting strategy. And I think we're going to see more quality play from them here. That's ENCE. They kind of shocked everyone when they signed Nerds, showed up, and went absolutely ballistic at Pro League. Best of 3 wins over G2 and Vitality. Stuff you just wouldn't expect from this roster. But it didn't really shock me. We already knew the pieces everyone outside of Spinks was solid. They could really like to work with Snappy liked working with them. It was just about getting another player in who could be let loose a bit, given a bit of autonomy, find those big impact rounds, find all those big frags, and that's exactly what Nerds ended up being. I was a little worried about the RMR performance, because best of 3 wins, the only one against any team that's considered at times good was Cloud9. Beating iNation 500 2-0. No one's going to start ringing the alarm bells. Watch out for ENCE. They beat fucking iNation. That wasn't that big a deal, but yeah. I did have some reservations about picking them. No one I've picked outside of FaZe and G2, I think here in the favourite section, are super assuring. Like, I feel like we could see a lot of upsets in this challenger stage. But I do think ENCE have the firepower, the IGL, and the system to just, if not breeze through, sneak through. Because when it comes to best of 3s, I don't see a lot of these teams who can upset them in best of 1s standing a chance. They've too much of a good map pool, and yeah, they're going to be firing on all cylinders, I believe. So I like ENCE to make it out of this. Not confident about it to the same extent as I would be with other teams.
I would say that for me, first off, I appreciate that Snappy has sort of changed the way that he was going to go about his recruiting strategy, because the whole Valde thing kind of just sucked.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, because we tried to go 1-for-1 with a player that you just couldn't replicate, and the style doesn't work. And now that they've sort of brought in a player that's willing to be like pretty explosive for this squad, like I like the move. I like Nerds, and I think Snappy's, as much as he might be a little stubborn in places, like now I think he's found a solution that'll work for this team. So the only thing I will say is I don't like that they have OG in their first round, because I think, if we were going to look at ENCE making it through cleanly, they would actually want to play an OG in like a best of 3, because I just don't think OG have a good enough map pool. So to a certain extent, we could see them up against, one of the stronger teams should they lose a game here or there in best of 1s, or a surprise loss to, I don't know, like a GamerLegion or something of the sort. I'm sure G2 have that one still in their minds from the last time over. So yeah, I would say just in terms of that, where my mind went, was that if there was going to be somebody that they want to face in like a 2-2 game, they would actually just want OG. So
they'd want anyone who's not one of the good sides. Basically,
OG, Apex, NIP for me.
I don't mind ENCE facing anyone who isn't G2, FaZe, or Liquid in the 2-2 match. You know, that final game, I need them to win. I feel confident in them beating everyone below them, basically in the HLTV rankings, in a best of 3. The problem is, we know how these go. With the weird seeding that's based on, I don't know, what a fairy shits in the morning, we end up with crazy matchups because the seeding initially makes no sense. Buckholes works. Buckholes is pretty effective if you start with a good seeding. But, you know, put shit data in, no matter the formula, you get shit data out. So
exactly, yeah.
Hopefully they don't get screwed. They don't play a 1-2 game against G2 or something else like that that can so often leave a weird taste in your mouth at these majors. But I feel confident in just their ability to best of 3 beat everyone except those people. So we pray for a seeding outcome that's favourable, and we go from there. On to the underdogs. Yumi, again, you're going first on this one. And this pick was salt-inducing for me, so I'm going to let you introduce it.
Yeah, unlucky. I chose, and as an underdog, Monte. Listen, they are, in my opinion, Monte are B&E, but, you know, a little bit more country diverse. You know, we're often, especially in like online tier 2 cups, just super limit testing teams. And listen, they're not always going to get Mirage. They probably shouldn't, if we're being honest. Any team that permabans Mirage would actually have a good matchup against these guys, in my opinion. But they are the worst when it comes to these opening 1-2 rounds at the start, where it is best of ones, where you're just going to have a tough time adapting or having enough rounds to like deal with these guys. Because I think they just have enough bursting energy at the start of tournaments to just honestly raw dog a lot of teams in the bracket. And listen, FaZe are going to be, I think, in a pretty poor position, considering they struggled versus B&E in their RMR. They're going to face a team that's very stylistically, in my opinion, similar.
Yeah, they are going to get in your face. They're going to take a lot of fights. There are maps you just don't want to play them in a BO1. Honestly, if you do, you've got to get weird with your veto. Like, you've got to just ban every map you think they're mildly comfortable on. Like, ban all 3 of their most comfortable maps and play whatever comes out the other end. I think that's kind of how you have to approach it. They do have, for me, it's a weird one because I love the top end of the roster in terms of explosive firepower. Because Boros is, I don't know, a tsunami incarnate as a man, like just throwing himself through everything. It's absolutely insane. Like, it's just fun to watch. But then I look, I'm like, I always have the same issue. You probably have the same issue looking at B&E, like, oh, cool, that guy can hit some headshots, hit some headshots. Who's got a plan? Oh, okay. The guy who can hit the 3rd most headshots makes the... Okay, right. So we'll see how that goes. And just hope it solves itself sometimes. You do kind of rely on the pugginess, I think, of the players to make it work. And that's the problem that a lot of teams have when they face the lower tier opposition in Europe, especially. That you know that they're going to have guys who can frag with you, and that sometimes they are just kind of playing in their own sort of controlled chaos. That being said, I don't expect Monte to go through. I think this is where my dream of them going deep like ends. If they had to make a top 16, top 8 type run, they'd have had to cheese their way through to Legends like ITB did. Like, they would have had to get lucky, essentially, on the roll of the Buckholes. Unfortunately, they ended up having to actually play for that spot against some good sides. Didn't make it through. That's okay. Are they really a threat? I think they're the opposite events. They're a threat to make it through 3-2 if they get the roll of the lucky roll on the seeding. I think there's some teams they can beat here in a BO3. They shouldn't beat any of the good sides, really. I
think for me, when I just think about, like, we've got Pain in there, we've got Apex, we've got like Greyhound, Complexity, Mongols, Fluxo. Like, there's enough teams that I think are susceptible to just losing this game, even in best of 3s. Like, I'd maybe even hazard Liquid in there, just depending on what kind of form they come into the tournament with.
You never know, yeah.
Yeah, for me, any of those teams could lose to Monte in a 2-1 game or a 2-2 game. So that's where I'm. Like, when I thought about which teams I'd put over them, like maybe a FaZe, maybe a GamerLegion, they'd be able to handle it. But I think that even they can sometimes just strike for worse. And you know, GamerLegion, I think when it came to, well, I think it was Brazy. Was GamerLegion in Brazy Party?
I
Believe, yeah, I believe they
struggled to keep
were.
track of who was in
Yeah,
Brazy Party. There was so many teams in that bloody event.
but they looked pretty rough in that event, and they lost to Astralis and ENCE respectively. Where you know the ENCE game was, I think, relatively close. They had like a very long overtime on the second map, but everything else was pretty one-sided. So
Mm,
I like GamerLegion, but I have to also understand that they're a team of certain limitations, and
yeah.
they're not always gonna strike the major. The fact they even got stickers this time around, like they'll take that already.
Sure, sure. I'm just imagining. I just looked through quickly who they played. Like when they lost at the RMR, like in the best of three, Monte lost to Heroic, and Heroic, just to rub it in, I think beat them on the two maps you should not want to play against this Monte side. They play them on Mirage, then Overpass, and beat them in straight maps, which is cool. But if anyone else, do not follow that sort of process to try and beat this team. Veto Mirage, don't pick Overpass, and hope to beat them on something else, because Mirage, Boros is a monster. Overpass, again, Boros is a monster, except just in pure entry pathing. His paths are glorious, and then he has a good enough set of players around him to make the trading possible. I would not want to face them on either one of those maps. Take them to Anubis. Take them to something weird. They're not going to know what the hell to do. Take them to Inferno. What are they going to do? Show off their util sets? No, they're puggers. That's kind of my philosophy to it. I wouldn't want to play them on those two maps. All right, enough about Monte, who I clearly really wanted to talk about until you picked.
I'm just going to say, by the way, Anubis isn't even a good pick. Like they hustled this map online a lot, actually.
Online,
like I know, but they hustle this. They hustle this map. Like their most picked maps are Mirage, Anubis, because it's like that just seems to be where they do their best work. So
okay. I'll leave it at that. I'd rather play Anubis. It's just all I'm going to put out. All right. Anyway, another pick and the underdogs. I feel like I got some solid picks, but I think I also got the most heartbreaking. So I'll leave the heartbreaking pick later because they are going to make me feel so many things during the event. Let's start with Pain. Funnily enough, who I expect to be less painful than my other pick. They are a fun little roster who I think, unfortunately, should get cannibalized in the coming months as Furia realize this ain't working. We're supposed to be Brazil's best team, and considering our talent, we should be a top side in the world. I feel like this Pain roster, we've only got so much time left to enjoy them together before someone gets poached off, moved on. So I've picked them again, because I picked them in the America's RMR as well, and they did me a solid. They made it through. They're a roster who, they have so many players that can actually step up. It's just a question of if enough of them can make it happen to just upset the odds. They're pretty high rated. This is like the highest rated of the underdog sides we have. I feel good about this one. I feel like if there's anyone who's going to like rock the boat, make top 8 who shouldn't, and you look at the teams above them, OG, NIP, teams with suspicious map pools, teams with players who just notoriously haven't been consistent. I feel like Pain are the team who are just going to slip through those chinks, make it into the top 8, and yeah, go on and get me some points, because I need those points desperately. Yumi, did you get to watch any of the America's RMR? Because that was a weird time zone to have to keep up with.
Yeah, it really was, and they also had tech issues like us.
Of course.
So yeah, so it was difficult. Mainly we caught up with EU, but yeah, I didn't get to watch too much of the America's RMR. I just always feel weird about Pain because I think they're one of the most. They are a pretty consistent team domestically in South America, but I also think they're one of the few at the top end that are the most upsettable. If I in this opening round against Fluxo, I wouldn't confidently say that Pain are gonna demolish Fluxo, and I don't know that Fluxo always played like the cleanest game. So yeah, that's where my reservations lie with this team. I think if they get off to a poor start at this RMR, like there will be no recovery. Because I think you're right. You know, I think this is a squad that eventually will be poached and picked apart, and they're just not in the same caliber of form where I see them winning events, let alone placing even quite well here. So, like, first off, I'll say Mongolian team being able to beat South American teams in Katowice. You know, big surprise. People quite excited. Now, UK teams being able to beat them, both the Pain roster as well as, oh, I'm trying to think who the other team was. I think it was Zero Zero Nation. Yeah, both South American teams that people would have much higher against them. Into the Breach beat both of them, man. I'll just say that. Like,
hold on.
no, I'm not
Certified
saying
hater
above
here.
Pain.
I would not have them. I would not have Zero Zero Nation as a higher rated team than Into the Breach.
Okay.
I think they're hot garbage. Just throwing that out there. I expected ITV to win that game. Beating Pain was fair enough. That was a surprising, encouraging win.
Yes, I'll put it out there. I thought they would beat both these teams. But I understand I'm biased, and also I'm willing to give the UK a chance. There are many that would think like UK Counter-Strike won their run through to the major. It's not that legitimate. There's some pretty solid wins in there. Even they could have even beaten RV really. So hey, listen, the RMR to me legitimate. Then we enter tournaments like this. Yeah, you're still improving ground territory. Like Into the Breach are just so like new for most people. Like looking at international Counter Strike, that they'll just say, well, sometimes we get these teams that just kind of crop up, and maybe they do okay, but it's about consistency. So that's where I would say I would go against the trend of people that would maybe doubt them. But all I'm saying is South American Counter Strike right now doesn't look that great. Like we have smaller underrepresented regions doing better than South American teams on average, like just in terms of like our breakout performances. Like outside of Furia, I actually just don't have confidence in like many other South American teams at the moment.
It's funny to use the word confidence and fury in a sentence that isn't ironic, but yeah, I see what you mean though. Like, you know, we so often have to roast Furia for just letting everyone down. But yeah,
we roast them because we love them, you know?
Speak for yourself.
Okay.
I said certified hater. I'm a hater today. Now I get the good vibes feeling like about how Asia's doing better than South America. I got a weird feeling with it ends today. Like not today, but I think it ends at this event. I don't know. I didn't pick Mongols to make it out of it, the Asia RMR. Well, we still called them IHC. I believe they're not quite rebranded yet at that point.
Yeah, the whole legalities of that came out like while we were effectively like prepping the day before.
So yeah, Mongols. I thought it was a miracle, not a miracle, but like I thought it was a bit of a shock that they made it out of that qualifier. Essentially, I don't see them doing much here, and I think Pain should well outperform them. I think that the good vibes end today. I think we see a little bit more of a little bit of a return to normalcy, I guess, because we're supposed to have South America be the better region, right? Just based on history and prestige and the one great team they had. Like they're supposed to be the better region. So I think that comes back to bear today. We were still talking about Pain, right? We got so sidetracked, I feel like, by other rosters at that point. Right, that was my Pain pick, right? Your second underdog.
GamerLegion. I've gone for GamerLegion. And listen, I said that they could be a vulnerable team to a team like Monte, but I like Shuei. Honestly, I'm a fan of the majority of this team, even their coach, like Ash, kind of circulated the UK scene for a long time and even tried to escape it with GamerLegion and has stayed with them for quite a long time. So I trust in what he's able to do, and this team honestly just has like solid pieces like Kioz, Ima, A-Core. Like this is an A-Core comeback story, and the fact that they were able to make the last major, I have confidence that they'll. I mean, first off, they've made this major too, which is good for them. But I actually have confidence that they've been able to put in enough work that they can put it together. That's, you know, that said, they do have events, and they've had these stretches from the last major to now where it does look kind of poor, and that's even with me valuing Shuei as like as an in-game leader. I just think that when it comes to the big events, they are much more put together. Like something about the stress of facing off against Bob and whoever is his uncle in these random brackets just isn't as. I mean, that to them just feels like they need the extra strat and anti-stratting that Ash will provide, and they're just not putting in the same legwork.
I can't believe you just sat here and told me Kios is one of the reasons you actually believe in this roster. I'm lost for words.
He's feels not like the smartest player there.
He's literally a casino. Like, he just bets on something and hopes it comes out. Like, he's a mess. Honestly, that's been my experience watching him in his career through ODLC, through this roster. He's just a bit of a mess. And combine that with the fact that I think Isaac, if you're betting on Isaac to have a good game, like as in fragging wise, like sure you might make some all right fundamental like positional plays or whatever, you know, typical support stuff, throw a good flash. But if you're expecting him to step up and frag, you're dreaming, in my opinion. So I think this team is really just Immer and Acor, and I'm not sure. I don't think this is repeatable, although they did from last time. I really don't like I think this is a three-man team essentially, and I don't like their form coming into this at all. Like, I know I get the prep aspect of it. I get that. It's a well-made point. I just don't believe in this roster at all.
I will say, I back the three-man side of it, but I don't know. Kios is like a wild card. Like, I genuinely do consider him like a wild card kind of character, but I actually think he has the mechanics, even though his performance as of late has not been solid. Like, he has the mechanics to pull off like a weird round that can potentially have influence on the rest of the game. You know, like maybe you would want a more consistent piece there, but I don't know.
Yeah,
that's where I think this kind of a system works to GamerLegion's favor.
Making the ultra risky, like balls to the wall, this makes some sense, but it's also highly risky. That's supposed to be sort of like the IGL thing. Like, he's the guy who pushes the smoke when you need to confirm that it's not a B play. You know, he's the guy who's supposed to... It's not supposed to be Kios just going for it, like just unleashing himself onto the world. Like, he's really a liability in that sense. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I've got a weird feeling they go 0-3 though.
Fair enough.
Final underdog pick. So I brought this up earlier, how this is going to be the most painful experience. Because this team has been all over the place for me. I've been excited about them. I've been a hater. I've been a loyal follower at times, like throughout this core's history, not just their version on this specific organization. It's complexity. I've been so up and down with these guys. I think they still have enough pieces to be like one of the 15 to 10 sort of range teams and do it on merit, not just on the fact that their org bought them some nice partner slots. Like, I think they do still have the pieces to do that on merit, but they still somehow need to be developed further. And it's been like 4 years or something ridiculous since these guys first appeared. Like, they've not been in this exact scenario for 4 years. They've not been on Cole 4 years, but they've been around for a while now, and they never quite seem to develop that extra step. So we constantly have issues with consistency, not knowing who's going to step up. Is it Floppy, Fang, or even Allzerk and Grim who are going to shit the bed today? You never know. But you also never know which one's going to drop 40 and somehow carry a game. It's very annoying. I hear a lot of people have great things to say about GT. I've always said that I think a coach IGL combo like switch up is the next step to someone with more pedigree in the scene if you can go and get them to really develop the stars to that next level where they actually are consistently a star, not a guy who you have to bitterly argue about on the internet because he looked good in this game but dreadful in that one. That goes for pretty much all of them except Grim for the most part. So I'm picking them purely on my belief that they should be better than they are. Because even though they're quite high ranked, I don't believe they earn their ranking through any like consistent performance. And I'm ready. I'm going to get my heart broken. I feel it coming. They're going to let me down. They're going to lose some brutally close games. And then also get smashed. But I'm there. I'll be there. I'll be watching. I'll be willing them on. They'll have all my energy. But goddamn, they're going to let me down. I can feel it.
And I mean, I had these guys down as one of my America's RMR picks. And I remember just thinking, like, they could have just not gotten here. Like, they had to face off against Imperial again during that RMR, and as soon as I saw that matchup, I was like, oh my god, this could be the downfall of this complexity roster. But I actually don't have the same concern as you. Like, weirdly, I I'm fine with JT enough because he's had enough time to work with these guys, and he's also like for some reason won some like crazy clutches in their tournament history to like keep them alive in games weirdly, which is totally unreplicatable and like not a consistency thing, but it does give me a little bit more confidence in what he can offer to this team, like just on a performance capacity. My actual main gripe is, listen, lovely guy. Talk to him. He's insightful, very articulate, very well dressed. But I'm gonna like Fang is actually my problem on this roster because he at one point or another had to change his roles, and we saw a dip in performance. And since I think Holzer came into the roster, his roles actually went back to the way that they were once before. And I just don't think that the his his actual impact on this team has risen with his role familiarity, which is a little concerning to me because I thought that was one of the pieces that was missing from this roster. Like when you have Grim and Floppy kind of trading places to just be like a rifling stud. I actually expected Fang to be like a consistent piece alongside that once they brought in like a more European or just a more stable AWPer. And I don't feel like I've gotten that out of Fang just yet, which is, you know, it sucks because I actually think from what I've seen eye test wise, he actually does have like good crosshair placement and movement, and like the mechanics are there. I just don't know that he's like quite mastered what kind of timings and which angles to fight at certain points. And I don't know if that's like prep or that's just flustered for event's sake. But yeah, I don't know that I would remove JT. Like in-game leaders to me are super valuable, and even if you're not like the highest fragging in-game leader, you can still do well on teams. Like shout out Hooksy, but I want Fang to do better.
You see, Fang is the main reason I started watching this team in depth, because it is immediately apparent mechanically. It's a ballet at times. He really is like sweet and simple and pure when it comes to the way he moves, everything like that. But yeah, I see things where I'm watching them play, and this is one of the reasons I really want JT removed, because I feel like it's him. Like, why is Fang a guy doing like hard entry stuff when JT's alive? Why is Fang like, I feel like some of the fights he's taking make no sense to me, and I'm not sure. Maybe it's me giving JT some shit when he shouldn't be. Like, rather it's Fang making terrible decisions. But yeah, there's a lot of times where I feel like he's misused, and I can't put an exact like description as to what it is exactly. Like, oh, he's not being flashed for enough or something. I've not looked into it beyond that point. But that's one of the main reasons I always talk about that. But I find it, I still find it frustrating every time someone comments on Fang. I always sit there like, you know, is Floppy just gonna skate on by as always? And everyone's like, he's got terrible rolls. Not really though. Not really. His rolls are fine. He's just all over the shop, just like everyone else on this roster. But he skates on. What is he? Is he cute? Like, is it that? Like, I don't get it. I just really don't get it. And watching this guy's POV, like, I don't get why everyone loves him. I just don't. It's frustrating as hell to me that I watch this team and I can't find like two solid, consistent parts. So yeah, I get what you mean with Fang. I do. It might just be he can't get his head right, like in the game, in the moment. He's not processing the things to a high enough level. You might never ever find that level in that case, and that'll be too bad because it'd be a waste of some of the, like, quite honestly, some of the better mechanics I've seen on any player. He doesn't have the top end like deliverables on it, but his mechanics are gorgeous, and that's a damn shame if he can't actually make it work ever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could see your point as well. It could be like a JT role thing where, you know, he's being thrust into that scenario instead. But I think regardless, you know, it's about how it kind of how it pans out in the server. And for now, Fang is just like not the most. It's not as active as he potentially could be. You know, in some capacity, I would compare, like, without maybe as much popularity, is like Fang has like the potential to be like, it's not quite like robot level Shroud, but like if we're gonna talk about players that have the mechanics to back, like I think Fang is actually in a very similar position where, yeah, there might just be some sort of mental hurdle or not just finding the right in-game leader to sort that out, and maybe that'll just be another one of Canada's sort of players produced that just doesn't end up making it.
It could be. It really could be. Oh, enough.
Not all doom and gloom. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I want these guys to succeed as well, but it's certainly an interesting dilemma they find themselves in.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's just frustrating, I think, at the end of the day. And we'll see how they do. Hopefully they can... They should be, again, one of those teams alongside Pain, I think, who have a realistic chance. They play at the level we know they can be at to just make it past the teams that are looking messy above them. You know, the OGs, the NIPs. I think, honestly, with some of the matches I've seen recently, the MOUZ Sports. But let's get on to the one team, one of the massive teams we haven't discussed, just because neither of us picked them as a favourite. Hell, you went, in my opinion, dumpster diving to avoid them. Liquid. You're not liking what you're seeing? They did come through into the... They came out of the America's RMR not too uncomfortably. Like, they lost to Furia, but it didn't look that terrible to me. Like, why are you not feeling them? Why are you not taking them in this?
Well, I mean, first off, the America's RMR is a bit of a joke.
That is kind of true.
Like, you said, I was like, oh yeah, they did actually have to play against Fury. I kind of forgot about that because I remembered who they faced off initially: 0 Nation, Flamingo, and Nouns. Like, that's dope, man.
Yeah, dropping a map to Nouns, I realized on the seat is a bit shocking.
Yeah, like I get it. These guys are one of the best teams in North America, and I don't discredit that. I struggle to back North American teams when it comes to European-based events. Like, as much as I might like the players and I might think that they're good enough and all sorts, I just, you know, it seems like when we jump the pond, it's hard, man. They could still well go through. I just wouldn't have picked them because it's not interesting to me. Okay. I think.
Yeah, like 3 months ago, they made it to top 4 at Katowice. Like, they made playoffs at Pro League. Sure, they lost to Pain. I made some money on that. But I feel like, yeah, we're doing them a bit of a disservice to not say they're one of the, 16 best teams in the world. Not that making top 16 in the major is an objective measure of that, but as a representation, you know, to say that they're not going to make it out of this field feels like a bit of a diss, but at the same time, I get why you'd be hesitant. Like, choking, always an NA thing. Coming in as a favourite, coming in as one of the bigger names, you do expect them to disappoint. I just feel like we gave, well, not we, you gave some teams credit for like saying, oh, this is the big event, this is the one where you prep, you know, you actually get your coach involved, all that stuff.
No, that's true.
And they have all the veteran pieces, they have far better stars at the top end than most of these other sides. I mean, sure, your Kindar has moments where he can be streaky and lose you games. Elige hasn't been a superstar since, I don't know, God knows when at this point, it's been too long. But they still have NAF. OC's a better AWPer than some of these teams can really brag on a consistent event-to-event basis. Like, I'm sorry, Acor cannot be stated as a better AWPer than OC. Like, sure, he has bursts, but he's not really that guy. So I don't know, I feel like we have done them we have taken them a bit for a ride in this case.
Also, one of the main issues with Liquid on their rise and like them picking up your Kindar was that for some reason like Elige was just not doing very well after the transition, and I don't know what that was. Like, especially when I think we saw them in playoffs of, was it Pro League? Like last season's Pro League, not the one that
the one where they finished in second place. They lost to Vitality in a massive best of 5. Yeah, yes, Elige was non-existent, and he wasn't great before the move. Let's be honest, he wasn't. He's been down since before the move. But after the move, he did have an initial period of really bad.
And I think just shortly after, like towards the end of last year, like it got a little bit better, and it's actually, it does look okay now. I can't get that image out of my mind because I haven't like reinvestigated Liquid like actual like demo for demo and like how they do, or how they did it Katowice. Like I watched the games, but I didn't like deep dive on them, and it still does feel, it's just like so high variance on whether or not your Kindar has a good game. And as much as I want to like put him down as one of like the top riflers in the world, or like the top entries in the world, he's certainly still up there. But I'd even, you know, I'd make arguments that there are others that have surpassed them on like worse teams at the moment. So,
oh yeah, there's a lot of players who don't come with the same downsides as your Kindar. As your Kindar, there's definitely issues with having him on your side. Like he will make too many plays sometimes. He'll take too many risks. He'll demand too much in terms of what he gets to do in a round. And I think that can be limiting for other players. But at the same time, yeah, that same side of it does lead to immense impact, single-handedly winning like 11 rounds on a T side, basically just because he went in and did some crazy stuff, you know. There's upside to it. I think we are sometimes a little too critical of Yukindo. I think some people maybe think like we forget that he can be the best player on a server sometimes. It's just that the natural downsides always make us doubtful, because consistency is always the name of the game. When you're talking about top teams, you have to constantly make it past group stages, like the round robin type BS, the Swiss systems. Consistency is a big part of that. So it's natural that we always talk them down. But I think if they don't make it out, they're another one of the teams that have a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
they're also internally.
They're also one of the teams that just doesn't have like OC, as much as he can hit it like a nice ceiling, he's just not, doesn't seem good enough to, I mean, maybe make it out of the challenger stage, fine, but anything more than that, I think they might just get shortchanged, because they'll face off against like a Zaiwu or some shit, and nobody will be able to actually do anything like to stop him, basically, unless Yukindo hits like a blind or headshot.
Yeah, OC's in a... I've started to realize OC, I think, is just in the most unfortunate predicament of being on too big a name team to get away with being just an okay-ish AWP.
Yes, yeah.
Like, if he played on MOUZ, cough, certain someone, he probably wouldn't get anywhere near as much flack for being, honestly, at times, unimpactful on T side, not that great at CT side, on his CT sides either. He can have pop-offs, and he can get you a big performance and big numbers. But in general, if you look at the average of it, he's actually kind of lukewarm rather than scorching hot. And I think if he was on a team with fewer eyes on them, fewer fans, fewer haters, he probably doesn't get as much shit as he does now. Which probably doesn't help him, let's be honest. Probably not a fun thing to have to hear how crap you are from every single tweet and blog post and bloody podcast.
I mean, I remember like when they first made the move for Yukindo, I also just sympathized with the idea of like Yukindo just basically coming in and kind of big dicking the whole team, you know, like he became the front man of the band, even though like Legion Naf had been there so long, and OC is supposed to be like this budding star from North America that everyone's excited about, and then suddenly Yukindo's like the main focus. And sometimes that's beneficial for players, but it almost felt like negative to a certain degree on this team, because it felt like Liquid had almost lost some of like the national identity, because all they were relying on was like, oh, this import to save us.
Yeah, it's back to the simple days.
Yeah, it did feel a little bit like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Liquid are always in a weird spot for me, because I'm confident enough in them, but I also just don't like picking them. I don't know if that just makes me an NA hater or something, but it's just not where my heart is.
It's hater season, right? It's okay to hate people. It's fine. It's okay.
Oh, well.
As long as it doesn't become anything more serious, like just words on a podcast. It's all in a video game, it's fine. nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing personal, you know, yeah.
But alright, I think I'm going to call it there. Obviously, I'm going to try and get this out as quickly as possible so that we don't have a major start before this video's out, because that'd look a bit awkward. But yeah, I'm going to put up the polls, as I always do on my community pages, whatever they're called on your YouTube. People can vote. I, of course, always vote on them and sabotage them as best I can, but it never quite works. There's always enough votes to outweigh me and my army of bots. So look out for that, and hopefully I can make up some ground with my amazing picks. No offense, Yumi, I hope you fail.
Or maybe I've trolled. Maybe I've just trolled with my picks too. You know, that could also just be the case.
True, you did pick GamerLegion. That is true. We'll see. We're talking a big game. But hopefully it's a good event. Hopefully the top teams make it through and we get a competitive Legends and Champion stage. My God, this dog never shuts them. Anyway, fuck's sake. Pick the loudest bloody breed of dog she could. Anyway, back on track. That's going to be it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks again, Yumi, for joining me. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get one of these out before the Legend stage. It might not be any graphics, because I might be too lazy. Or / too busy. But we'll see how it goes. Alright. See ya.